now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live. That ended quick, huh? From the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold, and you can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just visit Amazon.com. If you're looking to get a signed copy, just drop me an email, Billy@TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by BillyCBoxing.com. Check it out. All the news that's fit the print and none of the BS. So check it out, BillyCBoxing.com. Plus, you can find out all the information about this show and a bunch of other stuff. And finally, we'd like you to make sure that you follow us on Twitter, well, on X, formerly known as Twitter. Friend us on Facebook, join our Facebook group, and, of course, subscribe to our YouTube page and Rumble page, and as well as our podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts, make sure you subscribe to ours. All right, coming up on today's show, I've got some great emails to read and comment on. We got Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. Are you going to watch this fight or what? Let me have your comments and during the show, and we'll comment on your comments. The latest boxing news, I'm going to break down and predict a very interesting fight this weekend, Jack Catterall against Regis Prograis. I got two fights that are coming up that I just can't wait to see. But first, let's talk about the fights that took place last weekend. In a shocker, went against my prediction, but the IBF junior middleweight champion Bakram Murtazailiev took care of former world champion Tim Tszyu at 1 minute and 55 seconds in the third round when Tszyu's corner threw in the towel. Look, I was shocked at this result. Second round, he was rocked and dropped twice. Tszyu returned to the corner and said, when he returned to the corner, you're as a fighter, you're thinking and hoping that you get some, good criticism or good instruction. And I couldn't get by the first words that came out of his corner's mouth. They're like, you got to protect yourself, baby. Yeah, you do. That was his instruction. The thing that bothered me the most is Tim Tszyu obviously didn't know what to do when he was in trouble. I mean, his hands were down. He wasn't moving, wasn't holding. I mean, this is all basic stuff, what to do when you're in trouble 101. I mean, he tried banging it out. Obviously, Murtazailiev hurt him, and his hands were down. I mean, he did nothing to really survive. After the first shot or a unintentional headbutt, he started feeling his head, looking. He could have sworn he was bleeding. It just didn't seem mentally there, in my opinion. As for Murtazaliev, I mean, all of a sudden it's like introducing Murtazaliev. He looked to me like a smaller version of Artur Beterbiev. Let's see where he goes. I'm interested. But first things first. First come, first serve, I guess, with him. We'll have to see what he does. But to me, it looks like he's got it all. He could jab, he could move, he could avoid being hit, and he can bang. So congratulations to him. As far as Tim Tszyu is concerned, um, I really thought that he was a better fighter than he displayed last weekend. Whether he fully hasn't healed mentally from the loss to Fundora or not, it's going to be interesting to see what happens moving forward. I saw a lot of opinions on social media feeling that he's washed up, he's finished. I just didn't think, I'm not gonna, say that. But what I will say is that he definitely needs to rethink what to do. I just was shocked that the guy didn't know what to do when he was in that much trouble. He was clearly in trouble, and he didn't hold on. He didn't do anything that you're supposed to do. Instead, he stood toe to toe with his hands down. I mean, it was like it was like Punch Out, Mike Tyson's Punch Out. He had an X on his face, But anyway, in a and there was some other fights on listen, this was a typical PBC card, all mismatched fights. The main event was good on paper, so I don't have any bones about that, but the rest of the card was terrible, except the middleweight fight between Caesar Tapia and Andrei Savardira, which was a really good fight, and to me it was the best fight of the night. So, I mean, the other thing I was a little shocked about, well, with that fight, I was shocked about the scores. I mean, it comes out to a draw. One fighter drops his other opponent 3 times. He gets dropped once, and it comes out to a draw. So, if you do the math, that means the judges thought that, he lost all the other rounds. I don't know. But typical PBC card. Another fight that a card that I watched was heavyweight Lewis Edmondson improved to 10-0 when he upset in a 12-round majority decision over Dan Aziz, who drops to 20 wins, 2 losses, and a draw in their light heavyweight fight. 114, 114, 114, 113, 115, 112 in that one. Adam Azim improved to 12-0 with 9 knockouts when he scored a brutal knockout over O'Hara Davies. And Anthony Yardy made a return. He scored a knockdown with the first punch of the fight, but then ended up going the distance in that one. So I mean, from a pure matchup point of view and entertainment point of view, this card was much more evenly matched and than the PBC card. And this is why I constantly say that the UK carries boxing on its back. Mike Tyson against Jake Paul. I wanted to get people's thoughts on that. I want to give a shout out. I didn't give a chance to give a shout out to my man Jesus and Joel and my man Coach. Joel, I appreciate the posts on the Triller page. I would love to keep doing that. Now, I do have a comment. Yeah, and I had Susan Winkleman is on the in the chat room. She says Tim didn't have a clue or didn't have a plan when he got hit, and that's what I've been saying. So, I mean, the truth of the matter is he didn't know what to do, and that was very disheartening for me to see that, especially some of the wins that he had that we went through. And Joel saying he thought it was going to be a sleeper fight. Yeah, me too. I didn't even think it was going to be challenging, But hey, the good news is Murtazaliev has emerged, and we have somebody else. My man Rufus is saying on the Tyson and Paul, real fighter predetermined, a take it easy expedition or a genuine contest. I'll watch it, but I don't buy into it being the real thing. Um, I'm gonna talk about that in a little bit. Hey, my man Travis, the What's Next kid, is in the chat room. Love this kid. Had a great time meeting him in person at the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. Anyway, one last thing I wanted to mention in a fight for the vacant IBF super middleweight title that Alvarez got stripped of. William Skull improved to 23-0 with 9 knockouts when he won a 12-round decision over Vladimir Shiskin on Saturday in Berlin, Germany, too. So those were the fights I want to. Okay, so Mike Tyson against Jake Paul. We've been talking about this, and my man Bill in the chat room saying there's no good reason not to watch. Mike will be in shape, and Jake is certainly one of the best young fighters we've seen after his first 10 fights. All right, so here's my thoughts. Are you watching it or are you not watching it was my question, and that's my basis on the show. Now, Bill, I don't mean to disagree with you, but I don't think the jury's out on Jake Paul yet. In the fights that he's been in, he looks good. But he really hasn't fought, in my opinion. I mean, the only guy that he really fought that was a legit boxer, Tommy Fury beat him, So, he does look big. He does look like he trains. And I know that Jake Paul takes his boxing career seriously. So here's some stuff to know about this fight in case you haven't heard already. First of all, they're fighting 2-minute rounds. This fight's November 15th. They're fighting 2-minute rounds. Mike Tyson claimed, now it was reported that Mike Tyson pushed for the 2-minute rounds, and his claim was that he pushed for 2-minute rounds to create more action. But the truth of the matter is, if you subtract 1 minute for those 8 rounds, for a guy that's 58 years old, it's giving you kind of a little more wind, I guess. But in any event, they're fighting with 14-ounce gloves. All right. So standard fights for a heavyweight would be 10-ounce gloves, right? In every commission, 10-ounce gloves. So they're fighting with 14. So I'm not sure what the reasoning is behind that. Because you can make the argument, oh, well, 14-ounce gloves are like pillows on your hand. Well, you're still going to feel the punches. As a matter of fact, some well-known people made comments about the 14-ounce gloves, like George Foreman, one of the most powerful punchers the sport has ever seen. He said, and I quote, this is a George Foreman quote, for a genuine puncher, there's hardly any difference between a 10 and 4-ounce glove. When I was sparring back in the day, many guys were hurt and holding on when I hit them. And he was using those gloves. And he said a 14-ounce glove can't mask the power. Ann Wolf, who was a boxer, and she's a pretty damn good trainer right now, said the difference between a 10 and 14-ounce gloves are just like hammers. They do different damage. But if you're hitting someone multiple times, it's going to cause the same amount as damage. And Abel Sanchez, one of the best and well-known trainers out there, he's retired now. Worked with Triple G and the great Terry Norris. He was talking about the 2-minute rounds. He says, I think that's going to benefit Mike Tyson because he can sprint to the finish. Less chance for his lifestyle to affect him. He's talking about smoking a little weed, I think. But as far as my opinion on the fight, Rufus thinks that he thought it's he says it's worse. The 14-ounce gloves are worse than what he thought. I thought for some reason, I agree. For some reason, I thought the initial announcement was 12-ounce gloves, but I got the official 2 minutes, 14-ounce gloves, 8 rounds. My thoughts on the fight. Okay, I've seen some of the hype, and I will tell you this. Talking about Jake Paul looks huge, man. Obviously there's no VADA involved with this because I mean his face has muscles on it. I mean that's a telltale sign that he's using some enhancements. He looks big. He looks very big, as a matter of fact. Mike Tyson looks like, and I know he's played the game, the promotion game. Um, I'm not sure what to think about this fight. They're trying to sell it as it's a real fight and this and that. Um, I think it's a real payday for Mike Tyson. I think he thinks it's all kind of fun. I think he is going to go in there and try to you know finish off Jake Paul. I want to sidestep this for a second. I don't know if you guys remember, and coaches in the chat room, but they did a computerized matchup years ago with Rocky Marciano and Muhammad Ali. Now, the truth of the matter is Rocky Marciano was still alive, and they asked to do this computer fight with a very young Muhammad Ali who was in his prime, and Rocky Marciano, and it was all supposed to be for fun. And Rocky Marciano actually didn't want to do it until he took time to get in shape. He was out of shape and everything else. And he got in shape. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. But and by the way, they recorded 3 different endings. One Rocky winning, one Ali winning, and one is what we saw, the draw, even fight. But I heard some inside accounts about the filming of that, and Rocky was hitting Ali very hard. As a matter of fact, they had to stop filming at one point, because of the body attack that Rocky Marciano was inflicting on Muhammad Ali. I only bring that up because I kind of think that that's Mike Tyson's thought. Everybody, look, Mike Tyson is not only a Hall of Famer, but he's a legend that will live forever, I think, in the lore of boxing. He was one of my all-time favorite fighters. I don't think he was the best heavyweight ever, but he certainly made one of the largest impacts on the sport. And whether you loved him or whether you hated him during his active reign, it seems today everybody kind of loves him. I don't know anybody that you mention Mike Tyson's name and they say, I hate that guy. I hate that guy. Now you can mention many other fighters, former or current, and you can get that reaction out of people. My man Coach is saying, no. Tyson Paul is pure WWF involving 2 fabrications, one larger than life, highly media hyped personality, and the other a social media celebrity, bringing the theatrics of professional wrestling. I have a tendency to agree with Coach. I think it's a view game. In other words, I think they want to get. I believe it's a Netflix, right? I think they're looking to get all the views and get people on their network, because it's free as long as you have that service. As far as how the fight's going to go, Mike Tyson against Roy Jones Jr., I hope it wasn't like that. I hope this fight isn't like that, because Mike Tyson wasn't allowed to really go for the head. They weren't going for the head. And Roy Jones Jr. admitted that, those body shots were hurting. Your power doesn't leave. The late, great Jack Johnson fought into his 60s, and he still had knockout power. The power is the last thing to go. But your ability to avoid a punch and move in the ring and your hand speed, all of that does go. So the question's going to be, can Mike Tyson get in close enough to Jake Paul to inflict his power? And I believe, and watching a lot of the clips that you've seen on social media with Mike Tyson, he looks fantastic. He looks, deadly in the ring. But We don't know if that is fabricated video or what, but we'll see. We'll see. As far as that fight goes, but I think they're going to do very well with the numbers. But I don't know. What's your thoughts, man? Do you think that you're going to watch it? And what's your reasoning for watching it? My reasoning for watching it is simple. I'm a huge fan of Mike Tyson. I don't. I don't really have any feeling positive or negative for Jake Paul. But I'm a big Mike Tyson fan. To be honest with you, that's my only reason for even consider watching it. The boxing purist in me says, "Forget about it. What are you talking about? What do you want to watch this garbage for?" But I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to be hoping that Mike Tyson wins. One other thing, the ring. I have not heard the official size of the ring. Now, the way the parameters are in Texas is it has to be no less than 16 by 16, which is a real small ring. I would think Mike Tyson wants that ring, and no more than 24 by 24, which is a pretty big ring, and that would be good for a guy that wants to dance around and stay away. So it's going to be interesting to see if you're watching or listening live on another stream. Come on over to the YouTube and let us know what your thoughts are, and I'll read your comments. But in any event, some boxing news I wanted to update you guys on. This is kind of a curveball. The WBC cruiserweight champion Noel McKillian won the title and was scheduled to fight his challenger Ryan Rozicki, and he injured himself, so the fight was put off. Then they rescheduled the fight, and apparently there was some problems with Don King Promotions, and now that fight's on hold, and the WBC is approving a interim belt, so when McKillian can fight, and that belt is going to be Ryan Rozicki taking on Peralta, and he's the guy that is going to be fighting for this interim belt, and then the winner of that will hopefully fight McKillian. As far as Peralta goes, he's a decent fighter. I like the fight. They fought already, and it was a controversial fight, but we'll see what happens. Andy says, I have no interest at all. Tyson was terrible 20 years ago. Who knows how bad he will be for now? As far as the other guy, who knows? Andy, what are you doing? Are you smoking some of the stuff that Mike Tyson supports, or what, man? Because how can you say he was terrible 20 years ago? Mike Tyson, he went downhill and had a couple of terrible outings, but to use the word terrible with the words Mike and Tyson, I don't know, brother. No disrespect, but I firmly disagree with you. But I do respect that you aren't going to watch it because I figure a lot of people won't watch it, especially boxing purists. I don't know if you caught this, but remember former heavyweight champion Charles Martin? As a matter of fact, Anthony Joshua, won his first title. Yes, Andy, I agree 100%. The Kevin McBride fight, he looked terrible. He was finished by then, and that was an embarrassing fight for me because I was such a big Mike Tyson fan, and no disrespect to Kevin McBride, but for Kevin McBride to knock out Mike Tyson, and my man, who's going to be back in a couple of weeks to join us, Alex Papali, he's got a picture of that knockout on his wall. Hey, speaking about joining us, I mentioned Don King Promotions. My man, Carl King, Florida Boxing Hall of Famer, boxing historian, former manager, close friend of mine. He called a lot of fights with myself. We had a lot of fun doing fights for a bunch of years on LDL TV, and he's going to be joining us next week, so we'll be talking to him about that. But anyway, Charles Martin. They just said that he's coming back to the ring November 16th. He's taking on Matthew McKinney in an 8-round fight in California. Martin's 29 wins, 4 losses, and a draw, with 26 of his 29 wins coming by knockout. He's been out of the ring for about a year and a half. He's 38 years old. He's taking on McKinney, who's 17 wins, 8 losses, and 3 draws, 13 knockouts. And McKinney's 43 years old. Look, this is my problem with the sport of boxing. All right. With the sport today, and most promoters with their mindset, Charles Martin, although he was a former title holder, let's be real, he was never a top heavyweight, in my opinion. He just wasn't. He's slow, he's big, he's slow. But now all he needs to do, and this is the reality, this is the sad reality of boxing, all he needs to do is win this fight against a 43-year-old, 17-8-3. Come on. It's not an impressive record, right? All he needs to do is win that fight and then win another one similar to it. Nobody's even going to care who he's fighting. And he's going to get a fast track to a big payday, maybe even a title shot. Now, for Charles Martin, that's a good thing. Attaboy, Charlie. And for the promoters, you lazy bunch of pieces of shit, because the promoters that are going to be promoting Charles Martin to fight their guy, they're just lazy. They're going to be able to promote the fact that he's a former title holder, he's this, he's that, blah, blah, blah. Okay? My biggest problem with it is that there's tons and tons of young fighters out there that are working their tails off in the gym. Not only are they working their tails off in the gym, they're fighting tougher fights. They're being moved. They're waiting for their opportunity. And a guy like Charles Martin, because the lazy, non-promoting promoters that are out there today are going to feel that they have more name recognition with a guy like Charles Martin to fight their young fighter than another young fighter who's just as hungry. And this is the problem with boxing. This is the problem with specifically boxing here in the States. You don't see this as much overseas. And again, no discredit to Charles Martin. It's more of a discredit to the promoters that are failing to give the younger fighters an opportunity. Rufus is saying he's one of the few guys who said McBride would win. But it was a sad ending for Mike Tyson. It certainly was. It certainly was. But hey, that's what exactly. Coach is saying, like Jared Anderson, who beat Martin in July. That was his last fight. But it is sad. But unfortunately for fighters and any athlete in any sport, when look, I've talked about this on the show. Look, these athletes, boxers, football, baseball, hockey, basketball, whatever, they're so elite compared to us normal people. Their athleticism in whatever sport they are, their training, I mean, they're great, okay? Even the guys that are third string sitting on the bench, they're great, okay? What happens is when you're young, you make mistakes. We all do. And especially in boxing, it's not as forgiving when you make mistakes, because some of those mistakes kind of stay with you forever. But your body, you start to learn what not to do and what to do, what not to do. And they always hang on a little too long. Other sports do it too. They don't know when to say when. And boxing is just more brutal when it's obvious that it's over. And that's what happened to my man Mike Tyson when he fought Kevin McBride. My man EMT Rick, what's up, my man? I hope traveling has been safe and fun for you. But speaking of Fundora, well, we spoke of him earlier in the show. The WBO has given him authorization that he can proceed with a voluntary defense of his WBO belt prior to facing Terrence Crawford. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about Terrence Crawford having the opportunity to possibly have a unification fight with Fundora, and now Fundora wants to get another fight out of the way, and the WBO has said, okay, so we'll see what happens. Of course, I want to see a Terrence Crawford Fundora. I just love seeing Terrence Crawford in the ring, So, I came across some interesting stuff. For some reason in today's sport of boxing, rematches aren't as popular as they used to be. I mean, the ones that are forced, like the big fight coming up between Usyk and Tyson Fury, and of course, some rematches, Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz, etc. It's not like we don't see them anymore, but we used to see them a lot more frequently back in the day. I mean, they used to book fights, where, I fight you at your hometown, you fight me in my hometown, then we fight a third fight someplace else, But one of the greatest, series of fights was between two great fighters, and one of them is the greatest of all time, and that would be Sugar Ray Robinson, and the other was Jake LaMotta. They fought 6 times, and every single one of those fights were exciting, and they turned out to be great fights based on the excitement, even though Jake LaMotta only won one of the fights. But I came across a couple of, and I have seen these quotes before, but I wanted to share them with anybody who hasn't heard them. This one, Jake LaMotta said, I fought, when they were asked about fighting each other as many times as they did, Jake LaMotta says, I fought Sugar Ray Robinson so many times, it's a wonder I didn't get diabetes. I mean, I love that. He fought Sugar Ray Robinson so many times, it's a wonder he didn't get diabetes. Sugar Ray Robinson said of Jake LaMotta, he said, Jake LaMotta and I fought 6 times. We almost got married. Every time I put my name on the paper, I knew what I was in for. And what that's saying is he knew he was in for a fight, a big-time fight against a guy that was not coming to lay down, But, yeah, well, Rufus is saying, hell no. LOL, rematches gum up the works. Yeah, they gum up the works for all the Petunia fights we get to see. And he says at least these days, because fights, guys only fight once or twice a year. And that's, Rufus hits it on the head. That is the problem. The fact that they don't fight. And the fact, I mean, look at these fights. You got these guys all pounding their chest, calling each other out, and then they all fight other guys. Tank Davis, pound for pound fighters, not fighting the guys that they say they want to fight. It's all BS. A couple of fights. Yeah, Coach is reminding me. Jack Britton and Ted Kid Lewis fought 20 times. Well, look, I mean, Sam Langford used to fight guys a bunch of times too. I mean, it was just the thing to do. You know why they were able to do it? Because they weren't written off if they lost. And again, this is why I keep saying the UK carries boxing on their back, because they don't write off the fans don't write off their fighters after they lose 1 or 2 times. Here in the States, you lose and that's it. Oh, he's done. But the difference is a lot of young US fans don't understand the game. They look at a fighter's record and he's got no losses and they think he's good just because of that. They have no clue about looking at the level of opposition that he or she has fought. And then when they look at a guy with losses, God forbid they're double-digit losses, then, oh, he's no good. And they never once look at the fights that guy lost to, or girl. 2 fights that are coming up. So we got some other comments I'll comment. I love the I love the interaction and I appreciate it. Rick says it's because they do immediate rematches and it holds the rest of the division up for a year. Yeah, but that's the whole thing, my man. The problem is that you got this division with all the sanctioning bodies. So they're holding up one sanctioning body because they got that belt. When we had one major belt, when you had one champion, it wasn't as it you had to fight those guys. You had to climb the ladder to get the shot. Today, everybody's got a title. They give them away. When you go to the dollar store, you buy something and they give you a championship belt too. Yeah. Let's see what else we got. We got Rufus saying Langford fought Harry Wills like 15 times. True. Aaron says, and the guys who want to fight everyone, they get robbed, like the Triple G's and the Kovalevs. Yeah, the guys that aren't afraid and they go against the house fighters, so to speak, a lot of times you got to knock them out. Hey, we're talking about Sam Langford. Sam Langford never cared about the judges. Remember, people were prejudiced against him because of the color of his skin. And he said he doesn't care. He brings two judges with him to every fight, his left and his right. And he made good on that. A couple of fights I can't wait to see is one I'm going to be ringside for. Robinson Consejo is taking on Oshak Foster it's a rematch for the WBC super featherweight title. It's going to be broadcast on ESPN Plus. It's at the Turning Stone. If you haven't gotten tickets for that yet, and I'm not even sure how many are left, get some tickets. I'm going to be ringside for that. I'd love to chat and talk boxing with you. So make sure you go to that one. It's a card. It's a really good card. Top Rank always puts on really good cards at Turning Stone. So I think you won't regret it. And if you've never been up to Turning Stone, you'll love it. It's a great facility. And of course, there's a couple fights in between, and of course, December 21st, we got the rematch. Usyk against Tyson Fury. They kicked off their official press tour. And look, this guy Usyk is the ultimate mind game guy. Remember how he was dressed for the first time around? He was dressed in like the official Ukrainian garb and stuff. For this press conference, he was dressed in a beautiful suit. It was just, and Tyson, Tyson always comes the way Tyson comes in with his funky stuff. But I will tell you this. I would not doubt in my mind that Usyk is 100% prepared for the fight. The guy I was worried about was Tyson Fury, but I can tell you that the interactions I've had with people that, have been working around him or people who have seen him, he has been out and about. He's in incredible shape. And he's taking this fight very serious. And I'm not saying he didn't take the first one serious, but my early prediction is that Tyson Fury is going to win the fight. I just have this feeling. But Hawk says, I think it's a wrap for American boxing. It could be. And I think that the fault is really, you need to blame two entities. One, the promoters, because they're lazy pieces of garbage and they retread, recycle, names so they don't have to do their job. And quite honestly, a lot of fighters today have to promote themselves. And the other reason is the fans. The fans, a lot of the younger fans are simply not knowledgeable in the sport. They're knowledgeable about their favorite fighter, but they're not knowledgeable about the sport of professional boxing, nor its history, which I feel. And when I was when I did my Hall of Fame thing, in my speech, I talked about that. I talked about the lack of, young fight fans wanting to know the history. And I feel that boxing is the only sport that you should go out of your way to learn the history because of the guys that gave their lives, really. And I don't mean necessarily getting killed in the ring, but after boxing for the sport, so that the fighters of today could make the financial money that they make, once you get to a championship level and fight the fights that they do, plus the skill sets. Look, I'm a historian. I'm an old time fighter, fight fan, and I will tell you that today's athletes are better. They are better. I used to argue that the old time fighters would kick the crap out of the new ones and everything else, and I think they still would, because of the heart. I think that the old time fighters had much more heart than the fighters of today. But let's be real. Fighters of today have the skill set, they have the nutritional opportunities, they have training techniques. They could be the best fighters that we've ever seen. But the lack of heart, the lack of balls, and the lack of willing to put your O on the line is why they don't, and is why we fall asleep during the fights. Nobody wants to get hit. Nobody wants to get hurt. Tim Tszyu was looking for blood when there was none. Even the referee was looking at him like, "What are you doing?" It's society has become mentally weak, and it has overflowed into sports. Let's be real. It's a shame, but it is what it is. Rufus says activity heart hardened by competition. Hardened by competition. You're talking about fighters of yesteryear. Hawk saying, somebody must have said, I missed this, but Fury's not overrated, is what Hawk says. I don't think he's overrated. But what Coach is saying is backing up what I just said. Could you imagine fighters like Sugar Ray Robinson, Willie Pep, Henry Armstrong, etc., training under today's science that they helped create, and nutritional advantages and the rules that protects the fighters? The fight that sticks in, as a matter of fact, in this studio, the other side is my office. I have a picture of Jack Dempsey. He's one of my favorite fighters, against Gene Tunney. And it was the first fight where you weren't allowed to stand over your opponent. You had to go to your neutral corner. It was deemed the long count fight, because by the time Jack Dempsey got to his corner, the referee started the fight. It was several seconds where Tunney was able to recuperate and eventually won the fight. But consider that for a minute. Consider that they were allowed to stand over their opponent. So in other words, you land a shot, you knock your opponent down, you're standing there waiting to nail him again as soon as he gets up, and he's groggy and everything else, and you're nailing him again. It was legal. It was legal. So think about the fighters that did get up and did survive another onslaught, and then come back to winning stuff. So yeah, I mean, listen, the dues that they paid and the path that they paved is the reason that I feel that boxing fans need to at least address the history of the sport. That's my thought, But Rufus is saying money ruined boxing. But listen, dude, money was always the case. I wrote a book about a guy who fought in the early 1800s, and it was all about the money then. Boxing has always been about the money. I don't want to blame the money. What I want to blame is the track to the fight. I want to blame a guy like Floyd Mayweather who made it seem like the only way to judge, and he bamboozled and lied to the fight fans, and we're living the end result, to put the value in the O. And not only was Floyd successful in basically altering the fans' perception of a quality fighter just by the O, he was successful in altering the promoter and the network and the streaming. They all follow suit. They all follow suit. They all look at the guy with the O and they say, oh, he's a good fighter. Nobody's looking at the opponents that he fought. And that's why, I mean, I remember doing this show when Andre Berto won his title, and I had Lou DiBella on, And we were talking about it. He says, yeah, now, mind you, Andre Berto's a world champion. And we're talking about him developing. And I'm saying to myself, developing. You're supposed to develop before you friggin' fight for the world title. How do you use he's still developing as an excuse for losing after you're a world champion? So that whole, basis is really the problem with the sport. Nobody should get a shot at a world title until they've paid their dues and have fought, more than a couple of top contenders. They need to climb up the ladder. Nobody. Listen. I don't want to hear when a champion has a belt around him to say that he's still developing. We always are learning different things. That's not my point. But my point is, you don't fast track a fighter, give him a world title, and then have an excuse when he can't win that he's still learning how to fight. What about the sanctioning bodies that you look at the rankings and you see, number 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, all the way up to number 3, and then you see not rated, not rated, not rated. How do you not have a rated guy? If are you waiting for somebody? I'll tell you why. Because they're waiting for somebody to pay them to get into that slot. Because if you have 10 guys, you should have 10 ranked fighters. You shouldn't have 12 ranked fighters and 2 empty slots. I mean, come on, give me a break. Give me a break. My grandkids would tell you that, Yeah, and none of your business is saying Mayweather used a PED excuse to dodge Pacquiao. I mean, I agree. They're agreeing he hurt the sport. Look, oh, wow, Hawk, man, I love you, but I disagree with this. He's saying the truth is Bud Crawford's a diva. I guarantee he won't fight Myrtle Zaylev after seeing what happened. Listen, I totally disagree with you. He's not a diva. Terrence Crawford, his big mistake was staying with Top Rank. He never got the money that he should have gotten. Now he's pushing 40. He's 38 years old. He wants the biggest fights for the biggest money. I don't think he cares. Why do you think he wants to go after Canelo? He knows it's going to be a payday. Anyway, those are a couple of fights that I definitely want to see. Now, tonight there's a fight on DAZN, Gucci Manny Flores against Victor Olivio. I honestly don't know much about either one of them, but Saturday is a good fight. Jack Catterall against Regis Prograis for the in a junior welterweight matchup or super featherweight. There's a super featherweight fight on that card as well. But I'm going to break down Jack Catterall and Regis Prograis for the junior welter fight. But the other fight that interests me is Reese Bellotti against Michael Gomez Jr. Now, Gomez is 21-1. Bellotti is 19-5. Okay. Again, you look at these Brits, and Reese Bellotti is still a big name over in England, and he's a talented fighter. He's just fought some tougher guys, and that particular fight is for the British, the BBBBC, British Super Featherweight and Commonwealth Boxing titles. So, not that means anything to you or me, but all right. Regis Prograis and Jack Catterall. Look, this is a good fight. It's a good fight. I hope you guys watch it. I'll be talking about it next week. But Regis Prograis, he's a tough guy, and he's got a granite chin. He's got a record of 29 wins, 24 coming by knockout, and he's got 2 losses. One of those 2 losses was his last fight, which was a 12-round decision loss to Devin Haney, who I think is talk about divas. I've lost all respect for Devin Haney. He was never exciting. This whole thing with him and Ryan Garcia, it's just now they're bragging that he's undefeated again because they ruled the Garcia fight a no contest because of the traces of steroids or whatever. And I'm not saying for a minute that that was okay, but I'm not crazy about Devin Haney. But in any event, Regis Prograis' last fight was a loss, 12-round decision loss to Devin Haney. And his other loss was back in 2019 when he lost the majority decision and his titles to Josh Taylor. He's a former world champion. He's ranked number 8 by the computer. He's fought, like I said, 31 times. He's fought 160 rounds as a pro, which is actually 46 rounds less than his opponent, Jack Catterall. He's got an 82, almost an 83% knockout ratio, which is almost double that of Catterall. He's 35 years old, which is 4 years older than his opponent. They're both southpaws, which is cool. He's 5'8", which he's got about an inch height advantage, and his reach is 67 inches, which gives him a 2-inch disadvantage. Like I said, the computer ranks him at number 8, but he's ranked in all 4 sanctioning bodies. The WBC's got him at number 12. The WBA's got him at number 7, IBF at number 7, WBO at number 7, and I just told you the computer's got it at number 8. So it sounds pretty accurate there. His 5 biggest wins of his career in October of 2017, he got a second-round stoppage win over Joel Diaz Jr. At the Turning Stone. I was ringside for that fight. And in October of 2018, he got a 12-round decision over Terry Flanagan, which was a big fight for him at that time. In April of 21, he stopped Ivan Reddick in the 6th round, and Ivan Reddick was a substantial piece of the division at that time. Jose Sabata, he stopped him in the 11th round in November of 22, and in June of 2023. He won a 12-round split decision over Danielito Zorella. Those, in my opinion, are his 5 biggest wins. Now, when you look at Jack Catterall, he's 29 wins, 1 loss, 13 of his wins coming by knockout. His 1 loss was to Josh Taylor, another guy that beat Progas. He's ranked number 9 by the computer. He's a former world title challenger. By the way, I failed to mention, in case y'all forgot, Regis Progress was a former world champion. He's got 206 rounds as a pro. Catterall does 46 more than Progress. He's 31 years old. He too is a southpaw, 5'7". 69-inch reach. I told you the advantages. He's got the reach advantage, and he's got the 1-inch height disadvantage. The computer ranked him at 9. WBC number 2, WBA number 5, IBF number 3, WBO number 2. And I was just saying about how they don't have somebody. Well, the IBF has him ranked at number 3, but nobody's ranked at number 2. Come on. You know, I like the fact that these guys are both ranked in all 4 sanctioning bodies. That's a big plus. That's a big plus, in my opinion. But I like this fight. So what are you going to see, right? Well, Progress has got a granite chin. He comes out at you. He's a knockout puncher. 24 of his 29 wins came by knockout. He's not going to change his style. And Jack Catterall, he's not a knockout puncher. He's got some knockouts, but he's a boxer. He's a sharpshooter. His fights with Josh Taylor, Jack Catterall, they might have put some mileage on him, despite him being a younger fighter. This is going to be a real interesting fight because the resume of Jack Catterall is a lot of domestic, meaning UK fighters. Regis Progress has fought a lot more internationally in terms of his opponents. Who am I picking in this fight? Well, it's a toss-up fight to me. It's going to boil down to, can Jack Catterall keep Regis away from him and stick and move and win a fight, a Floyd Mayweather-esque fight. A safety first, land a couple of shots, get out of harm's way. And I think the burden is going to fall on Progress. Can he cut the ring in half? Can he do what Beterbiev did to Bivol. Not that I think that this fight will live up to that one, but this is a tough one for me to pick. I just think that I watched Catterall take a lot of shots in his last fight, despite winning, and the other fight was close. He's a very skilled fighter, and I'll be rooting for him. But I'm going to pick Progress in this fight. I think the power is going to be a little too much for Catterall, and I think Progress has another fight left in him and another shot at a world title. So I'm going to go with Regis in this one, but it's a 50-50 fight, and we'll see what happens with that. So I think it's going to be a good card, definitely worthwhile to watch. I got some emails I want to share with you guys. This first one is from my man Jeff. Haven't heard from him in a while. He says, "Hey, Billy C, I always enjoy and look forward to your show." Now, he's talking about the last one that we had. He said, this one was exceptional. Your discussion with author Mark Allen Baker was completely captivating. It was a tremendous discussion. Yeah, we've had some really good authors on here that we had some great chats with, and I hope to get Mark Allen Baker back on. Another one was Paul Gallender, the Sonny Liston expert. He's another guy I'd like to get back on. So yeah, and we're definitely going to get Mark back on. He was a really good guest, knowledgeable guy, and we'll see if we can get him back on sooner than later. He says this is a great thing that we can agree to disagree. He says, I thought Bivol should have won that fight in a very close decision. You made some great points, but I was on the edge of my seat, not because of constant action, but because the thought that Beterbiev might land an explosive punch was always on the table. I can't argue with that. Jeff makes a great point. I, too, was feeling that way. I thought it was going to happen at any second. He said, when the fight ended, I never care about facial damage or marks because some people just bruise easier than others. But I truly felt when they said, who would you rather be, that Bivol's overall performance was at a higher level than Beterbiev. I would rather have had been him. A great chess match between two talents. Like I said, that fight was close. It was not a robbery. I picked and thought Beterbiev won the fight. I scored at 115, 113. I wouldn't have been upset if it went the other way with the same score, and I certainly wouldn't have been upset if it was a draw. No one was robbed, and I just think it was based on how you scored it. I felt that Bivol ran out of gas towards the end of that fight, specifically by the 10th round, and I think he was trying to steal rounds, and I believe that the body attack of Bivol slowed him down, and that those shots started to accumulate and started to affect Bivol more than it did in the beginning. And I also believe that a lot of people underestimated Beterbiev's boxing ability. I think a lot of people just look at him as just a heavy hitter. But it was a good fight. I hope to have a rematch. He says, I always felt for Marvin Hagler when he fought Sugar Ray Leonard because it was a tremendously close fight in which he finished very well. But in my heart, Sugar Ray had the essence of overperforming and Hagler just short of expectations. Why he changed his stance, I'll never understand. Tremendous show, Billy C. Great interview. Your enthusiasm was apparent. Thanks for the email, Jeff. It's always good to hear from you, my man. The Hagler Sugar Ray Leonard fight is a classic fight. It changed boxing forever because up until that point, you had to decisively beat the champion. And since that point, we've seen a lot of these kinds of fights that were real close, and it goes to the challenger. This fight was a fight that I watched many, many times, probably close to 100 times, and I'm not exaggerating. I've scored the fight more than a dozen times. As a matter of fact, we did an event up at the Boxing Hall of Fame in Canastota one year, and we got a bunch of guys, and I had a room that we all went in, and we watched that fight without any sound. and we all scored it and paused it after each round. And it was surprising to see some of the people that had always said Hagler won, or some of the people that always said Sugar Ray Leonard won, how their scores, started to change, by watching it without the sound. I, for one, scored that fight a dozen times, and I always ended up with the same result. The fight was a draw, and it should have been a draw, and we would have seen a rematch. Why Hagler changed his stance, I don't know. He did not fight a smart fight. If he fought the way he fought Tommy Hearns, maybe the result would have been different. But credit where credit's due. Sugar Ray Leonard saw something, and he carried out a game plan, and he stole a victory. He won the fight on as far as the books go, and it is what it is. Great fight. If you've never seen it, watch it. And if you've never seen Hagler Hearns, you got to watch that. It's 3 rounds of the best live action I saw. Although Benny Kid Paret and Gene Fulmer was 10 rounds of that. And you could watch that. Right? We have that up on our site, and you could always Google it. It's part of a Boxing Revisited when we did that series. The late, great Sal Senecola and myself, we did Boxing Revisited, where we took some old classic fights and rebroadcast them and called them as if they were live. And that was our first one. That was the pilot. And neither one of us had watched that fight in its entirety. So you got to check it out. If you want the link, let me know. It's up on Rumble. We have it up on Rumble, our new streamer or whatever. Got an email from a man coach who's in the chat room, or at least he was. He says, Tim Tszyu's loss was a successful, significant setback for him and his fans. One thing that caught my eye was that when he was hit early on, he reached for the cut area from the Fundora fight, even with nothing there. Listen, that was one of the most horrendous cuts. And why they let that fight continue, the Fundora Tszyu fight, it is beyond me. That was terrible, terrible. The commission was bad. The ringside doctor was bad. The referee, that fight should have never been continued. Tim Tszyu lost so much blood in that fight. It's a miracle he's finished that fight on his feet. He says, as you well know, boxing history is full examples of fighters who came back stronger after a major setback. Vinny Pazienza after his motorcycle accident, Willie Pep after his plane crash. A lot of people don't know that about Willie Pep. Both those outside the ring. But it will be interesting to see how he rebounds from this and what adjustments he's going to make moving forward. What's your thoughts? Should he continue on with his career? If so, what are some of the immediate and down the road changes do you think he could make? I talked about that earlier in the show, and I can tell you that what I saw in this fight was a regression of his boxing skill. Now, I don't know if it was due to the fact that his faculties weren't there, that he got really rocked in those first knockdowns or not in the second round. But the truth of the matter is that he didn't do anything to protect himself when he was hurt. And that's something that you learn real early on. So I don't know, maybe change. I don't know. I don't know what he can do. I don't know if he's finished. I know people have stated that on social media. I don't know if I'm ready to join that crowd, but he definitely needs to go back to basics. Maybe focus, take a year and focus on fundamentals again, and maybe get a new trainer. I don't know, but you got to protect yourself, baby, was his instruction when he went to the corner. That's not acceptable. That guy, I would have fired him right then. I would have thrown him out of the corner. Last point that coach makes is my guy Travis, the what's next kid Smith, is back in the finals again, this time in New York City Metro's on November 2nd in Brooklyn. I love this kid. He was in the chat room earlier. Talented fighter, and congrats to Travis. And hopefully they can keep me posted on that. I can't wait for him to continue his success in the amateurs, and maybe someday we can see him as a pro. So and finally, my man Rick, who actually I was just going to say, Rick, that the if you go to our Rumble account, rumble.com, and go to Talking Boxing with Billy C, it's there. It's on. It's. I had uploaded it recently, maybe a few months ago. It's probably one of the first ones. You got to go all the way back to the first page or whatever. But I put it up there because I was pulling some of those revisited. I have some other ones too. Um, I think I have Sugar Ray Robinson. We did one on him, and we did a couple on Duran. His first loss as a pro, actually. But anyway, this is from my man Rick. He says, "Are you still doing Blast from the Past? If so, I'd love to hear you do a piece on Chop Chop Corley. I really had no idea he was still fighting, but he's been pretty active right up until about COVID. But his last fight was last year. I think it would be cool to feature some gatekeeper type guys in that segment, guys that the youngsters and casuals might not be familiar with, but who have been around the block and fought everyone. I used to enjoy watching Chop Chop, but I really had no idea he's still been fighting. I didn't think he was fighting beyond 2010 or so. Looks like a lot of fights have been overseas. I was actually reminded of him because of an Instagram clip of his fight against Mayweather, and someone in the comments mentioned Mayweather was just beating up cab drivers. Obakar and Ben Taki are a couple of other guys that come to mind that would make for interesting blasts. I hate to think of guys like this getting forgotten by the new generation of fans. Thanks for the email. The sad thing is, Rick, that they are. And the whole idea of the Blast from the Past, when we first started it 10 years ago or whatever, was to educate the fan on some not so known fighters, whether they had been a champion or not. So gatekeeper type fighters we did a lot of back when we were doing those on a regular basis. Do we still do them? Yeah. My man Alex, who I love doing the Blast with, just hasn't been able to join us here on the show. But he is scheduled to come back and do a show in a couple of weeks, so maybe we'll do a blast for that episode. But Chop Chop Corley, I actually had him fight on one of my cards in Florida once. Yeah, he's a character, Chop Chop. And I love Ben Taggart. That was a good one too, Rick. In any event, don't forget next week we're scheduled to have Carl King, Don King's son, and a good friend of mine. This guy is a walking encyclopedia about boxing. We had a lot of fun calling fights together, and he just got inducted into the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. So we share something in common. We're both inductees of a Hall of Fame in the year 2024, just different states. But I'm looking forward to chatting with him and having him on, and I think you guys are going to enjoy that interview as well. Well, listen, make sure you enjoy the fights this week, and always remember you can email me your thoughts or comments, Billy at Talkin Boxing, TalkinBoxing.com. Thanks for joining us today, and remember, make sure you tune in next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.